Welcome to the meeting of Board of Education for March 18th, 2025. I call this to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media, consistent with the Open Publics Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Laws of 1975, and that the advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Watchung at which formal action may be taken. This meeting is being live streamed on the district website, where a recording of the meeting will also be posted. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda at points in the meeting provided for the public to address the board. Recording or photographing, other than for private personal use, requires the consent of parents and guardians whose children may be included in the image. Have a roll call, please.
Yes. Mrs. Amadeo.
Here.
Mrs. Harvey.
Here.
Mr. Kraft.
Here.
Mrs. Maddox.
Here.
Mrs. Santos.
Here.
Mrs. Jewett is absent. Mr. Gonzalez is absent. Mr. Frage is absent. Mrs. Aguilera.
Here.
Thank you.
As before, I'm going to change the order of the agenda a little bit and move the executive session down until after comments from the public on agenda items. Move forward with our presentations. Dr. Glazer and Mrs. Bishop-Johnson with the 2025-2026 tentative budget.
I hope you're all very excited. Anticipation. Decide what you want to do. Is that okay? All right. So we're facing the, what are we facing? The camera? I'm going to turn out a little bit. Hello. So, good evening. Welcome. Karen Bishop-Johnson, our business administrator. If you haven't met her, Julie Glazer, superintendent. So tonight, Karen and I stand before you. Me in the district a year and a half, Karen just over a year. Can't believe that. We're already presenting our second budget to the community. Last year, we stood pretty much right here, and with the support of the board, we committed to transparency and a new perspective on the reality of the financial and fiscal situation of the district. The budget we are currently working in, current budget, was just a start towards building a financial foundation that we are hoping will be sustainable. As you know, the district has been in crisis mode after many years of strict monetary controls and not taking advantage of the available tax revenues that are necessary to address the rising costs of running the district. We received a lot of federal and state grants as a result of the pandemic, private donations. We used bond interest from the referendum to fill gaps. None of that is available. So last year, our recommendation, which seemed like a really big increase all at once, right? Didn't have to be that way, we know. The idea would be over time to spread the increase over several years. We did foreshadow last year that we would still have to recommend above a 2% cap this year in anticipation, but we saved bank cap to make sure that we were able to do that. This year, again, we have a lot of unknowns, right? We have a gubernatorial election that's coming up. We have some unknowns with federal funding. We had some state aid cut. So again, what you're about to see tonight takes all of that into consideration. We budgeted our federal funding at between 50 and 70% at the advice of the State Department of Education. We received a 3% cut in our state aid, net cut overall. That's reflected in this budget. So you know, I think we always think it's just us. We are not alone. Watchung is not alone with the situation. Almost every district, if you're following along in the county and overall, is facing the need of using their waivers and their cap. Many of our neighboring districts are also cutting staff. What you're going to see tonight reflects the fact that we were not able to include many of the requests that we had in this budget. We remained cost conscious. We were very creative in every aspect of operations, and so far, I am proud to tell you, we are not cutting staff here in Watchung Borough. What we're presenting tonight, though, is still our continued effort to stabilize the budget and the district finances. We finally, I feel like we're finally getting ready to turn our attention towards enhancing the educational environment for our students. And the feedback that we've been getting during our 3 to 5 year strategic planning process is also reflected in what you're going to see and hear tonight. Aaron, second? Thank you. So these slides you see every year, but we want to make sure that everybody has the same understanding, right? The budget process. What you're seeing is the financial expression, if you will, of the district's goals and our vision, right? Karen does a really good job translating that into dollars, and that is what makes that basis of the budget process. Our vision, Aaron, vision? Thanks. Our vision, we talk about a lot, right? Especially in the past months during the strategic planning process. Again, we're taking those conversations into consideration as part of our decision making, but it also is informing our long-term goal setting. We need to be able to look not just at this year, but what we're trying to accomplish going forward. And again, you'll see that reflected in tonight's presentation. Aaron? I should have used that clicker. We should have done the clicker. So this budget flow process comes to us courtesy of the New Jersey School Boards Association. As you can see, we start out with the input of teachers, principals, our other members of the leadership team. Karen and I come together, the board, our community partners, which you'll hear from later. And we start that process of requests. What do we need? What are we thinking? Where did we last year budget that we didn't need or didn't budget enough or too much? All of those conversations start. We are only at the second phase in this process. Tonight you're at the, obviously, the tentative approval. This is the first budget approval. It is what we are recommending. You will see just from that community standpoint, right, after approval tonight, the budget goes to the county superintendent for approval. We are in the community. March 27th, we'll be doing a similar presentation to tonight at the Borough Council meeting for the council members and the community. We continue to meet with the board committees all the way through spring break. And then we would be recommending the final budget, that board adoption, on April 24th at our next Board of Education meeting. Aaron? Thanks. The board has a huge role in our budget process. You can see where they're involved in setting priorities, our goals for this year. We do have district and board goals. They work with our budget calendar for the year. You'll see that a little bit later in the presentation. And obviously, they're on the front lines of helping us to communicate with the community and then the oversight, right, of those budget dollars. I have to say thank you to the board for spending hours reviewing our recommendations, sometimes till 9 or 10 o'clock at night, asking questions, getting clarification. Again, we still have time to refine this before the final budget, but tonight, I think Karen and I are hoping that we are going to be able to show you not just this process and the board's role, but how the community has really come together this time in a very thoughtful and purposeful process. This is what you're about to see, our best effort to stabilize the finances of the district, but also to prioritize that improvement of and enhancement of curriculum instruction and assessment that I think that we all have set as our priorities. Aaron? Again, the budget timeline, this is a requirement under CUSAC and compliance. We follow our timeline. Each year, this budget calendar is developed. We begin in the fall. You can see as early as October with facility walkthroughs. We start working with our budget spreadsheets to all of our leadership team, reviewing everything with the association, building that expense side of the budget so we're ready in February. And also in February is when the governor actually makes his state aid announcement. So that's when we're able to start developing the revenue side, which you're seeing tonight, both sides, expenses and revenues. Aaron, can you, thank you. After the April 24th public hearing, the user-friendly budget gets posted to the district website, and then we move forward with our next phase, which is the staff reappointment. That happens May 8th, and staff reappointment is the only thing on that agenda. We still have our regular board meeting in May. All right, I think I got it. Okay. There you go. Well, it's just, it's that slide.
Okay. So this is basically how we collect the data for the expenditures, or how, I do and with others help. Salary projections are a major part of the budget, so that's really important to do early on. But this year we are in negotiations. So this year the salaries are really TBD. We have to wait and see what they're going to be. So that is one unknown this year. But the employee benefits, by meeting with the brokers, the vendors, going through all the different worksheets that they send me, I can estimate, and I am told how much to estimate in some cases for healthcare, for pension, that type of thing. They tell me how much I have to estimate. Tuition, our out-of-district placements, we estimate about how many kids will be going out next year, working with special services. We try to be conservative, but we have an idea. And we do get the tuition rates ahead of time from the out-of-district schools. Transportation, same thing. We have the out-of-district transportation on this, and ESY transportation. We also have regular transportation. Regular transportation goes up by the CPI, Consumer Price Index, every year. So that's hopefully fairly stable. Our building maintenance, we always know what projects are coming up. We keep a running list of what has to be done every year and what we see that needs to be done. We have all of our annual operating costs. So utilities this year are difficult because we're being told to estimate 15% on electric and gas, over. You're probably seeing that at home too. It's, hopefully things will change. But and property insurance also up, all of that, everything is up. Enrollment projections, we look to see what we think we'll get for students next year. Our debt service is the referendum and the amount that's due. And then we work with leadership and all our teams, and we build, the budget requests. So that's that. Aaron, could you switch the?
You can only do you.
Okay. Okay. So, on our expenditure side, my role and the business office, we're always watching to look for the best prices. We have purchase orders. We follow all the rules. We'll check with multiple vendors. If we think, we can get a better price somewhere else, we do. So we are always checking. We get quotes for everything. We'll get multiple quotes. We're very careful. The objectives of this budget is to support the teaching and learning in accordance with the vision and continue to maintain the restored fundamental positions and programs that were previously cut. Last year, we put back quite a few. We want to continue on that path. We also would like to continue to grow and develop programs and operations to prioritize the improvement and enhancement of curriculum, instruction, and assessment. We want to maintain our current class sizes. We want to manage this budget efficiently and seek to reduce expenditures wherever possible. And we want to generate surplus and build reserves for the future, maintenance and capital. Okay. Yeah. Aaron, can you switch? Keep
He
thinking.
did.
Oh, he did?
Key decisions.
Okay.
He did.
Oh, all right. I guess it's because it's not in two spots. The key decisions: maintaining the current class size, maintain and expand staffing levels within the budget, maintain the current level of programming for transportation clubs and sports, continue and expand professional learning and collaboration initiatives, prioritize curriculum, instruction, and assessment to improve academic outcomes, and strategic stabilization of operations in addition to staffing, support services, and purchase services. We're always thinking out for the future, looking to see where we are now, and trying to make intelligent decisions into the future. Okay, that's okay. Okay, there you go. Okay. So according to statute, the board can increase school tax levy by up to 2% every year. We also are allowed to use allowable adjustments as determined by enrollment increases, healthcare increases, and any banked capital. This year, we have no enrollment adjustment to use. So the 2% tax increase from last year's levy is $287,483. And we have also a healthcare adjustment this year of $278,719, which we would like to use. That healthcare adjustment gets there mainly because the state health benefit plan, their cost went up 14% this year. So we actually are given, some help to pay for it, to pay for the expense. Oops, all right, this is where I want to be, right? All right. This screen is hard to see. I can, we can print out a couple copies. Yeah, it's hard to see. So last year, if any of you remember, I was talking about our per pupil spend last year, and you can see that we were spending the year before $18,924 per student. And that's a calculation that's done. And this comes out from the Department of Community Affairs. Every year they update. So we've been striving to make some improvements. And that's one of the things we had said last year. If we could, raising the taxes would give us more money per pupil. We were successful because you'll see, Aaron, just go a little bit to the right. Yeah, right there. So the preliminary budget of the year, this is the year before, because they're always a little bit behind, when they put out their data. But we had gotten up to $19,245 per pupil. And then last year, which is not going to show on their website right now. We have raised it to $21,691, and that came from, we were finishing the grants, but mostly the additional taxes. So that really does put us in line. It's a little bit hard to look at this and think that, well, we're at 21 and that would put us, down into some of the other, schools. But this is also now 2-year-old data because we're now projecting 2 years out, right? So this is next year's budget. So with this current budget, my hope is that we get closer to about 24,000 per student, and that will put us in, Aaron, if you go back to the left, that should put us right in line with some other districts of our size in our neighborhood here, with a similar ratables and whatnot. So that's what we're kind of striving for right now. Okay, yep, and there's some nearby counties, on there which are being hard to see, but Long Hill, Mendham, some communities that are small like Long Hill, but close by.
And the presentation will be up on the district site after tonight, even maybe tonight if Erin is not too sleepy, so you'll be able to see it better.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to see, and we can't really zoom in. Okay, so that's all I have to say about this. But every year, the interesting thing is, it does get updated. The DCA will put it out. We'll see. But I'll be doing that anyway, so I will show you.
I already moved
Oh.
you there. It's Erin. There you go.
There you go. Okay. So the current tax levy right now, the year we're in, is that number that you're seeing, the $14,374,143. As I said, we have no enrollment adjustment this year. The 2% increase adds $287,483 to our balance. The healthcare adjustment that I just mentioned is $278,719. And this year, we're requesting to use bank cap of $250,000. You may remember that last year we had about $1.3 million, and we used half of it. We left the other half for this year, but we're going to just use a quarter this year, leaving that final quarter next year. After that, if this district continues to use the adjustments, it's given healthcare or enrollment, depending on what happens that year, and always budgeting at the cap, we wouldn't have any more bank cap. And that's how, that would be the best way to stay stable. Use what we're given and no more and no less if we can. If we used all the bank cap, then the maximum, our budget would be this year would be $15,447,000, but we're not. We're requesting $15,193,045.
Hey, Karen, what happens if we don't use the bank cap, like at all? What happens?
If we don't use the bank cap, it goes back to the state. You don't get it back as in the town. You don't get that back. So that's not really, and really bank cap is almost like a savings account, but it lasts 3 years and it'll roll, but as the 3 years, as it's rolling off, it's gone and it gets returned. So it's not returned to the taxpayers, which is probably something that not everybody knows. Let's see what else we have. Okay. So here's just another screen showing kind of the same thing. Our local tax levy now would be 3.68% above the 2%, and that's $15,193,445. We take in other revenues, $365,663, so that's tuition, bank interest, fees that we may charge for use of the facilities, technology fees. We have our opening balance from 2024 of $1,224,847, and that's our state aid number, $1,286,213. That is a decrease of close to $40,000. I did budget extraordinary aid this year of $300,000. That's aid that's given to us every year, variable. We don't know the number until August, but that's a conservative estimate. We have special revenue grants in Fund 20 of $208,677, and debt service this year from the referendum is $1,128,369. So the total of the entire revenue and likewise expenses is $19,704,114. Anything else I want to say about that? No, that was it. Okay. So the next screen. Here.
Aaron, is there a pie chart before that?
It looks like it's blank in the presentation you sent me.
Oh, that's too bad.
The pie chart was,
Maybe just not showing up. I don't know.
the disappearing pie chart.
Because it is, that's where it goes.
You have on your computer, you could email to Aaron?
Aaron, it's on our, you don't, okay, doesn't,
You could just show it.
like, say anything, whatever, movie reference.
So I can tell you.
Yeah, I was gonna
I
say
can
this
tell you.
year,
So,
the big
so our biggest, so of course it's so small, our biggest piece of the pie is regular instruction programs. And that is, I can't even really read this, but it's this big piece. Yeah, can you make that?
Yes, I can.
Oh, that would be great. Because there is
Yes, I
no way,
can.
even though, I mean, I do,
There you go, can you read that?
that's much better.
There
Okay,
you
so
go. Try that
$6.5 million is regular instruction program. Our administration costs are $1,177,000. Our transportation is $1,210,000. Plant operation is $1,547,000. Employee benefits is $3,858,000. And special education, $3,863,000. So the percentages are 36% is the regular budget, administration is 6%, transportation is 7%, plant, building, 8%, benefits are 21%, and special education is also 21%. That's how that breaks down.
So what was the biggest?
The biggest is the instructional programs,
What does that include?
36%.
What does it include?
That's including all the teachers, all the, everything to do with instructing your children. So everything about PD, nursing, any type of support that the students receive is instructional. Anything general education.
When public comment.
All right, now.
Oh, now you have to go back.
Now we have
It's
to
too big.
shrink it now. All right, there you go. Oh, well, I could see it anyway. So here's the significant increases that impact the budget. As I mentioned, salaries were to be because we're not really sure what they're going to be. We have anticipated and adjusted positions of $255,000. As Dr. Glazer mentioned, we had requests for new staff. We were able to include 3.5 staff. Our health benefits, major driver at, close to $300,000 increasing this year. We have the textbook adoption with professional learning and curriculum development of $219,000. Our transportation, consumer price index going up $44,000. Our facilities, we have boiler maintenance contracts that we want to put in place this year, and any other maintenance we may have listed, including a gym floor this year, so that's $124,000, and contracted paraprofessionals at $137,000. So those are the big drivers of the expenses, and therefore the need for revenue this year.
Is that me?
Yes.
You're good. So you're all, so as Karen explained, the budget we submit has to balance, right? To make sure that happens, you can see, mostly, there are a lot of moving parts. So we had, as an example, requests for 12 positions. It wasn't realistic. We can't do that. We tried all manner of things to try and accomplish all the things we want to do and still grow as a district, right? We looked at adding 6 periods or the possibility of a reduction in force in one area to boost up another area. This takes a tremendous amount of time. It includes not just, obviously, Karen and I. We've talked about our leadership team. Nicole and Denise are here tonight. Karen Kidd could not be. You've got Aaron in the booth. Ricky could not be here. But all of those people, you have no idea the amount of brainstorming, ideas, spinning that we do to get to this place. I will also tell you that our association meets with us regularly. They also provide that input. We get ideas from other districts, from the Board of Education, and I cannot tell you how grateful I am for that kind of out-of-the-box thinking, for innovative suggestions, because in the end, even though we're not able to add all the people or all of the opportunities we want to, we are recommending a budget that prioritizes our expectations, right? Effective teaching practices, supportive leadership, improved student results, the maintenance of our operations. Those are the things that we did not compromise on. Once again this year, again, as Karen said, we are not advocating using all of our bank cap. We want to continue the initiatives that we've put in place, continue to grow moving forward. I am hopeful that this is how we're going to sustainably advance our goals, regardless of all of the current unknowns, all of those current unknowns. So, the supervisor of instruction. Let's talk about that recommendation. I think that there is maybe some misunderstanding. We have a very small leadership team. The people that you see here and the other people all wear about 20 hats, right? Besides being the director of our special services, running our after-school program, also our HIB specialist, our multi-language learner person, our IDEA grant, what else? I know there's like 20 other things. Just shout them out. Don't be embarrassed. Look at now, you're embarrassed. I was going to say, don't be embarrassed now. Yeah. And the same, Denise has our early childhood, general ed, pre-K, what else? There's curriculum. I won't get them all, so you have to say them. Oh, no, all right. So look at her email at the bottom. It lists them, and same, caring kid to gifted and talented, affirmative action. So everybody's doing too much. And because there is not anybody else to observe our staff and evaluate, I get to do that too. And there isn't anybody to work on our federal grants or do the reports or to have those conversations. We do that too. So this supervisor of instruction will, yes, work with our leadership team on curriculum, on assessment and data, on instructional practices, on observation and evaluation, all of the things that you would expect. But in addition, the reason why it's instruction globally, some of the things in the business office related to grants, some of these other hats, that they'll get their own hats. I guess we'll have to make new hats. But that is what that position is. It is somebody with a specialized certificate to be able to do that work. It does not add to our administrative expenses in the budget. And that's important. The next position that we are recommending, a world language teacher. Right now we have our ESL staff, our Spanish staff split between buildings. We have a disproportionate number of students taking Spanish here at the middle school. We really need to be able to do a program review, not just world language, but also our multi-language learner program. We are fortunate that we have staff that are certified in several areas so that we'll be able to do that program review and to be able to enhance our not just our offerings, but our programs. Halftime basic skills to restore. You've heard for a couple years that person who was, that position was put back in a classroom to help maintain those class sizes. We have not been able to restore that as a full-time position. We have had people certificated with reading specialists or through our Pursuit of Excellence program or moving other teachers with a period to do flex programs to provide additional support in English, language arts, and math. It hasn't been consistent. We thought about continuing that this year and saving some money in the budget, but again, looking forward, right? Our hope is to have this restored full-time. If we didn't do at least half-time this year, I don't see us being full-time, right? You might be half-time next year. So we did the best we could this year, restoring a half-time and growing, right? Expanding our program. Just along with that, with construction last summer, we weren't able to do any of our summer programs with Pursuit of Excellence. Those programs will return this summer at both Bayberry and Valley View, which gives us yet another move forward. And Mrs. Kidd was actually at the Youth Services Commission meeting earlier because we were waiting to see what grant funding we have to support that. I didn't get a report back. I don't know if you did. All right. So possibly good news there, too. And the last position we are recommending is a .4 custodian. We currently have a person who is .6, and it has become very apparent it's not enough, right? We have something almost every night, right? If you look at the calendar, we have regionalization on Monday and negotiations on Tuesday and strategic plan on Wednesday, and these two people, full-time people here, are setting up the chairs and taking down the chairs, and when we do the talent show, setting up and taking it down. We really needed to make that part-time person whole with that .4 of that position. So those recommendations, right, that's part of our increases to the budget. Additionally, obviously, we talked about last year, that's what we were saving that bank cap for, our K-8 math textbook adoption, curriculum alignment and development and professional learning, our K-4 ELA resources, again, curriculum alignment, development, and professional learning. The staffing piece, as you saw on Karen's slide, $212,000. The curriculum and professional development, curriculum writing, that piece, $219,000. And again, that totals $431,350 that we are recommending. When you look at, oops, I think I went too far. Erin, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. Just as the recap, right? Your 2% tax levy, $287,483. We still needed $528,715 to balance the budget. We used the $278,719 healthcare waiver. We are requesting the $250,000 bank cap, still leaving us $257,000 in bank cap next year. And this is what has us balancing on the revenue side. Yes? All right. So I'm going to make this bigger so you can see it here. But there you go.
So this is the school year tax impact. School year runs from July 1st to June 30th, so it cuts the year. So what I'm showing you is the top two rows are without the debt service, and the bottom two rows is with the debt service. The first thing you want to note is that the ratables in the town increased significantly this year by almost $189 million. And the home value, which is a few columns down, the home value is increased by $80,307. Last year they increased about $52,000. This year they've increased by an additional $80,000 for the average home. So what this is showing, and we might as well just look at with debt service, that the increase in the tax that we're requesting from just the school is annual $410 or $411 on an average home. So if you have an average home of $936,000, which is just recently assessed, and including the referendum debt, your taxes are $6,000, or the school piece, $6,368. That's an increase of $411 from last year. It's $34 a month. It's $1.15 a day. But it is an increase. The way you can find out what your home will be assessed, the tax for your home, whatever your home is assessed at, is you multiply that by 0.00044, and you'll get your increase. So if your home is worth $400,000, it's $175, and if it's worth $1 million, it's $438. So you can use that formula there and find out your taxes from the school district only.
And on the school year.
And on the school year. So this does, this is important to us because this is how our fiscal year is. On your calendar year, it's a little different. Aaron, could you, yeah, there you go. So on your calendar year, I didn't put the formula, but this would be January of 2025 to December of 2025. We're already in the middle of, that year. So it cuts the year. So that's just another way of looking at it, and then therefore the increase with debt service would be $554, and that's the debt service piece. You can kind of tell there that it is up a little bit next year from last year. Last year we had more debt service aid. This year we don't, but I can see next year the debt service is lower. So I don't, it's 30 years, and that's the way the bond was drawn up. So you can see that. So that's the amount that we are requesting. Really the 411 on our budget, the screen before. Okay? And that, again, that's also going to be on the website, so you can print that out if you want to do some math. Our final budget hearing is on April 24th, and we do thank you for supporting education of our children. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions. There's my email. Just send anything, and I can look up the answer and get it to you. Okay?
And thank you all for coming and listening, and for our staff for coming and listening. Very much appreciated. We have council, you can't see them, but we have Council President Eid here, community members, WEF. It really makes a difference. All of your voices and involvement make a difference. So thank you, truly, for being here.
Dr. Glazer, I just wanted to ask you, you talked about how the new supervisor position would be working with the leadership team. Can you also describe how they will be working with the instructional staff and how that trickles down to the students?
Absolutely. Thank you. Like I said, we talked about what the goals are, right, with this budget. What are those three, if you will, big ideas of what it is that we're trying to do, right? Effective teaching practices, supportive leadership, improve student results. So by providing, supervisor is one example, by providing a supervisor that can work with content, that can oversee the professional learning, not just in the district, but initiatives to grow, right? Those effective teaching practices to help people with content. I would like to think that our team here in Watchung Borough, all of us, are coaches, right? We're going in to provide feedback. We're modeling. All of our observations, when I talk about observations, those are opportunities for professional learning. Those are opportunities to provide feedback, again, to improve those instructional practices. When we can have a dedicated person who is able to work with our leadership team on what those priorities are, right? This year, say, language, arts, and math. I'm going to call you out because you're here, Denise. Sorry. I know this is why you're so tired, though. Not only is Denise, Miss Fickner, the day-to-day operations, right? Everything that's happening in her school. She's also coordinating with our consultants to work with staff on unpacking the standards around math, doing that scope and sequence, aligning that curriculum to make sure that then whatever resources, right, that we're piloting and may decide to adopt make sense for the grade level, for helping us meet those or exceed grade level expectations and skills. She's doing that on top of her current work. She is trying to identify those resources on top of what is happening. She is observing as the primary observer her staff and doing that feedback on top of what's happening. Having that additional person to be able to look at, right, look specifically at that curriculum instruction and assessment, to look specifically at those teaching strategies, those resources, those grade level progression of skills, to be able to coach and model, to make recommendations, right? To have another set of eyes in the classroom. And I don't mean that as evaluative, I mean that as another set of eyes to support in the classroom. And that does require the supervisory certificate at a minimum. All of those things together allow us to do what we say we want to do, right? Move the practices, help our staff have that deeper content knowledge, more strategies in their toolkit, more opportunities to be able to take risks, try new things, use those new resources with efficacy, right? Have confidence in that. Supporting our leadership team, I think, is pretty obvious. They don't also have to be gifted and talented and multi-language learner experts anymore. They don't have to be the data experts or do all of the reporting for the grants on top of, again, those day-to-day operations. That, in a nutshell, leads to those improved student results. When we are able to provide, right, best practices instruction, when we're able to provide professional learning feedback, coaching, modeling, an opportunity for our principals to be able to be supportive as instructional leaders and not just as building managers, that's the best I can say, it makes a difference. When we have somebody that can take over, say, the multilingual, can't even get the words out, multilingual, help coordinate the professional learning with Nicole for special ed, for all of that, it frees up our current leadership team and me, right, to be able to do more direct work with our staff, and that obviously improves student outcomes. Other board questions?
Thank you very much, Dr. Glazer and Mrs. Bishop Johnson.
Thank you, truly. Uh-oh. Sorry, I'm stealing the pen.
Use the Mac. I was afraid I was going to close the.
Oh, you wouldn't. You're good.
I'm not a Mac.
Okay. So we're trialing putting the enrollment back on the agenda.
Let me get there.
Yeah, give you a minute. We'll have Dr. Glazer read out current enrollment.
So these numbers are comparing March 13th last week with March 13th a year ago. What you'll see here is grade by grade at Bayberry and Valley View, as well as our totals and our current numbers of out-of-district students. Our total enrollment last year on March 13th was 675 students. Our total enrollment on March 13th last week, 672 students. We don't have a lot of movement up and down, but this is our current.
Thank you. Like I said, we're going to move executive session, just out of respect for everyone in the audience. And so we'll move on to superintendent remarks with the district update, principal's report, and the business administrator's report.
Why don't you start with principal's report? I don't know, Nicole, are you reporting to? No, I didn't know if who Karen gave stuff to.
All right, good evening. Denise Fickner, principal of Bayberry. I have a short report. The PTO book fair was held February 27th and 28th at Bayberry. It was a huge success and students really enjoyed their new books. Bayberry celebrated Read Across America March 3rd through March 7th. We had a variety of guest readers visit the classrooms, parents, administrators, authors, and our council president, Mrs. Eade. To wrap up the week, students participated in an entertaining and motivating assembly with author Joe McGee. Thank you to Ms. Gale, our librarian, for planning this event, and also thank you to the PTO for their financial support. During the week of March 10th, staff at both schools deepened their understanding of Hindu culture with an informative presentation by the Hindu Education Foundation during faculty meetings. Meanwhile, students in grades 3 through 8 took part in a vibrant Hindu poster exhibition, exploring a range of cultural topics such as yoga, holidays, festivals, sciences, and traditions, all with the support of dedicated volunteers. Watchung Hill's 9th grade ambassadors visited with small groups of 8th graders on Thursday, March 27th. Students discussed the transition from middle school to high school, including the increased expectations. The theme for March Mountaineer Monday is dedicated to Women's History Month, emphasizing the importance of trust and the cultivation of relationships. 10 Valley View students participated in the Young Women in STEM conference on March 13th at Princeton University. On March 14th, also known as Pi Day, Valley View students and staff celebrated the mathematical constant. The fun included pie trivia, videos, songs, memorization challenges, and even pie ice cube refreshments. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to start to coordinate my PowerPoints with your notes so we can see it while we're talking. We'll try that next month. Karen, any additional business office information?
No additional. It was all about the budget.
All about the budget.
That's it.
Say all about it. All right.
Nothing else.
Oh, no, there's always more. Erin, could you go to that PowerPoint? So we started off, since our last board meeting, the borough mayor can see our coach Sharp with our basketball team there being honored at the council meeting. We then, like I said, that started off our time in between since the board meeting. You can just go, yeah. We then had the most exciting, after Valley View's talent show, the PTO sponsored the Bayberry talent show here at Valley View. And I have to say, I put in as many pictures as I can because I know everybody tells me that they're looking for their kid at home. I tried. There were so many amazing acts. I can't even tell you. There's Miss Fickner with a bunch of kids. It was wonderful. The students did an amazing job. I will say thank you to the PTO. I hope that it exceeded your expectations as well. But I also have to, again, thank our staff. You'll see Mrs. Lamming, who was the MC for the evening. I think we had most of the third grade team up there, some of them. We had most of the team out supporting the students, and you can't really ask for better than that. That is, our hope for outcome. You asked about how we improve student outcomes. It's that willingness of staff to come support their students, to see them outside of the classroom, to really support their interests too. Erin, you can keep going. Then we were lucky enough to have our second round of strategic planning. That was the session devoted to visioning. We had a number of community members, board members, and in our second session, we also had students. Our student participants were amazing. You can see they actually even presented out for the gallery walk, which you can't ask for better than that. And then beyond that, even after this meeting, they requested a meeting with leadership, me, their advisor for their 8th grade club, Miss Kidd. We had lunch with them later that week, and the students presented their own set of goal areas and action items, which so impressive. I just loved that. And so those will be incorporated in to our next strategic planning session, which will be March 26th, Wednesday, March 26th. I had to think about that. Right in this room, 7 o'clock, and you will be seeing a lot more information about that. That's the one where we actually do the goal setting together. We had our wonderful Women of Watchung event at the Art Center. This is our former board member, Gail, being honored, Councilwoman Sonia Abi Habib, who I think this is the 3rd year she's put this together. Wonderful night. Thrilled to be able to honor Gail and the other 3 women of Watchung. Now we get to our Read Across America. There you are, Councilwoman Eid. You did an amazing job. She was in a lot of classrooms. I think you saw some old teacher friends from when your son was in school. The students really loved talking to you just about, you know, believe it or not, the borough. They talked about the playgrounds. They talked about a lot. So it was wonderful, and thank you for participating. We had teachers make those super cute T-shirts. Love those. So I wanted to make sure you got to see the teacher T-shirts. This is our librarian, Miss Gale, and our author visitor, Mr. McGee. At one of the sessions, again, the PTO brought the author visit and made sure copies of all the books, of all Mr. McGee's books, were added to our Bayberry Library. And this is one of the faculty sessions with the Hindu Education Association. They came and did I thought, a really masterful job of talking about all different aspects of Hindu culture. This was spurred by Holi, which was Friday, started Friday. And I have had the blessing and privilege of celebrating Holi and playing Holi. Not just in India and Nepal, but to visit, there you are, see, that was part of their presentation, but to be able to study that culture in a number of countries. So it was really meaningful to get to the school. This is at Bayberry, and see they had stations set up around different aspects of culture, yoga, the different symbols. There was a gentleman, it was probably my favorite thing, talking about the history of math and the architecture in Jaipur that literally shares all of the constellations, you can figure out the distance to the sun. I just loved it. There he is. And then we did the next day here in the APR at Valley View. Each of the social studies teachers cycled through. They had more posters, more things. They were here all day with Valley View, but it was really a wonderful opportunity. We are hoping to be able to play Holi next year in the township, to be able to work with our community partners, maybe as a fundraiser, selling all of the different colors, and having a community celebration. You don't need to keep going back to me. Thanks, Erin. Much appreciated. Thanks. But it was lovely to be able to do that. Just a few reminders. We do have the next regionalization meeting next week, and there will be a community town hall April 10th in person at the high school. Look for a flyer to come. We have our transportation registration form out public. The deadline for that is March 27th. If you have not pre-registered for transportation for the fall or opted out, please do so. Again, our 3rd strategic plan meeting will be March 26th to do our goal setting. We have our presentation of the budget at the Borough Council meeting, March 27th. Schools are closed for students on Monday, March 31st, in honor of Eid. Our staff that celebrates are excused, but otherwise, that is a professional learning day for all staff on that Monday. We'll share more at the next meeting. We have, again, our consultants coming in, our insurance company doing staff-directed nutrition centers with smoothies and coffee. It should be a really wonderful day for everybody, especially with spring break coming. I know, hang in there, we're almost there. Schools are closed for students and teachers for spring recess, April 14th to 17th. When we come back, again, the final budget presentation, April 24th.
Thank you, Dr. Glazer. Okay, so moving on to committee reports. Mrs. Harvey, could you give the report for the curriculum committee?
Sure. Oh, no, it's working now. It was funny, I was just taking stuff out because Julie said some stuff, so I'm not going to repeat it just to save time for everybody.
Sorry.
No, it's good. We met on Wednesday, March 13th. The meeting was from 4 p.m. to 6:20 for some of us. It was virtual. Those in attendance were Dr. Glazer, Karen Bishop Johnson, Jen Aguilera, myself, Fatima Santos, Jessica Maddox, Denise Fickner, Karen Kidd, Nicole DeToda. Most of us were there between 4 and 5:27. But Mrs. Santos and Miss Maddox were there until 6:20 to go. I'll skip to the end of our meeting. They went over the budget development with Dr. Glazer and Karen Bishop Johnson. So they were there a little bit longer. The rest of us had already gone through it. So we did discuss some new business. So for the extended school year program, Ms. Toda informed the committee that the program will be in Watchung this year from June 30th to July 31st from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Parents will be notified at the beginning of April if their child is recommended to participate in it, and the preschool will also be included this year. Then we went over the pursuit of excellence, Valley View times, for the summer that is. Valley View times and dates are going to be the same as the extended school year program, and Bayberry's times will be 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Students will be invited based on needs of ELA and math. Valley View usually has themes for students to focus on so that it's more engaging. And the incoming 5th graders and 8th grade students who are also entering high school will be invited to attend, just in case there's any way we can help any 8th graders going into 9th grade in case they need any additional help before they start high school. Bayberry will also begin inviting students to participate over the summer based on individual needs for ELA and math. Then we went over professional learning. So for March 31st, I'm going to skip some of the stuff that Dr. Glazer already said. But we did have the IDE consultant provide professional learning specifics for ESL or MLL, however parents want to remember it. I just usually put ESL because that's usually what everybody knows, but it is called MLL now. They provided recommendations on how to move forward with our program, and Principal Kidd informed the committee that the consultant shared strategies similar to creating an IEP for those students. There will be ongoing professional development for teachers. Ms. Toda felt that Frontline, the software used for managing the IEPs, would help this process, but stressed that the teacher training is necessary. This type of plan for the ESL/MLL students can be placed under the response to intervention part of Frontline. Then we went over the AMLE conference. This is a middle school national conference that will help our staff learn more about block scheduling, student motivation, and even more. The outdoor learning staff is going to attend a conference to receive additional training on how to utilize our new outdoor learning space. The parent meeting which is the HIB/Just Joking. There's going to be a parent education session on what a HIB is and how, quote, just joking is inappropriate for school, and it should be scheduled in about April or May. Then we did a follow-up on the referendum, the field and outdoor learning commons. A thought exchange survey will be going out to contribute to the process, and we're on schedule for summer construction. Strategic plan, our second strategic plan meeting was held on March 3rd to identify focus areas and action items. This was attended by 25% staff, 25% student, and 50% community members. Dr. Glazer did go over that the students wanted to have a lunch and learn as a follow-up, and they did. It sounded as if the leadership team was very impressed by it. They came up with 3 goals for the strategic plan: student learning, community engagement, and communication. And some of their action items under these goals were digital suggestion box, a student advisory panel, and more. Curriculum update and resource adoption timeline. Bayberry continues to pilot materials, and ELA is being narrowed down and will be completed before the end of the school year. Valley View is still looking at math programs. The math program chosen will include new textbooks, workbooks, and online student support. We did go over the Hindu education, but Dr. Glazer went way into depth beyond what I have written here, so I think everybody kind of got that already, and that was about it. Thanks.
Thanks, Mrs. Harvey. I'll go ahead and give the Administration Finance report. The Administration Finance Committee met on Tuesday, March 11th at 5 p.m. till 9 p.m., and this meeting was in person. Committee members in attendance were Mohammed Frage, Manuel Gonzalez, Dory Harvey, and myself. From the administration, we had Dr. Glazer, Mrs. Karen Bishop-Johnson, and Ricky Boyd. Committee also discussed transportation and the registration forms that went out to the parents to register for busing for next year. We discussed the referendum projects, include the field and outdoor learning commons, and the community meeting results, and the current project timeline. We also discussed the strategic plan. We went over agenda items, including the employee professional development, pay application package, change orders, payments of bills, transfers, and financial reports, the Somerset County ESC for coordinated special education transportation, and the disposal of old furniture, file cabinets, tables, chairs, and 2 old compressors, as well as approval for a professional service in the business office. There is a payroll position vacancy in the business office effective April 9th. And we were also adding a physical therapist to the approved providers list. And then we went over the budget. So this was basically a budget meeting. All right. Mrs. Amadeo, could you give the report for the policy committee?
The policy committee met virtually on Wednesday, March 12th, from 5:34 p.m. until 7:10 p.m. In attendance were myself, Jen Agliero, Dory Harvey, and Manny Gonzalez attended as alternates, and administration, Dr. Glazer and Ms. Pinky Nielsen were also in attendance. Several topics were deferred until next month when the regular committee attendees could reconvene. So there would be some consistency in the ongoing discussion. On the agenda tonight for a second reading, Regulation 7510, use of school facilities. We received no further feedback, so that will be up for a final vote. And some new policies that we reviewed. Bylaw 0164, conduct of board meetings. This bylaw spells out the agenda order for public meetings. The committee agreed to move all executive sessions to after the public comments at the request of the board president. This bylaw will be updated and moved to a first reading tonight. Bylaw 0167, the committee discussed adjusting the language preceding public comments to limit individual speaking to 5 minutes, noting that an individual will be asked not to repeat points in a single statement and to wait until all other parties have spoken before standing up again. Language will be added at the end of the statement, reminding the public to state their full name and sign in at the door for record keeping. We also discussed who should respond to public comments, how and when. This language will be rewritten and reviewed in the next committee meeting for a first reading. Regulation 2419, School Threat Assessment Teams, and Regulation 8420.1, Active Shooter. These are both mandatory regulations. Dr. Glazer noted that the related policies were re-adopted last year. The committee was comfortable with the wording and asked about aspects of training and communication with the authorities. The administration will review and compare this language with the most recent adopted policies to ensure consistency, and then send both regulations for a first reading in April with any necessary updates. New business, policy 2440, summer programs. Dr. Glazer explained the need to provide additional support to small groups of students who are in danger of failing the grade at Valley View. These students will be offered summer programming through our Pursuit of Excellence program. The committee agreed to review and update this policy to allow admittance for these students on a case-by-case basis. Policy 8601, student supervision after school dismissal. The committee discussed the liability and safety concerns related to releasing Bayberry students to minors under 18 years old. The committee agreed to review the programs in Genesis, Community Pass, and Parent Pickup to ensure that all language is consistent across all of these programs, stating that a designated escort must be an adult, aged 18 or older. The committee also agreed to authorize a separate permission to release form, allowing a legal guardian to approve others for pickup. The legalese needs to be reviewed to ensure it is consistent with the policy and provides the appropriate liability waivers. Following this, the committee will update policy 8601, the related permission form, and student handbooks.
Thank you, Mrs. Amadeo. I'll give the report for the negotiations committee. The negotiations committee met with the union on March 5th and will be meeting with them again on March 25th. On to board liaison reports. Mrs. Maddox, could you give the legislation? Do you have a report for the legislation?
I do. So on December 31st, 2024, Governor Murphy signed into law A5151S-3957, which allows public bodies to continue using newspapers for required public notices and legal advertisements until March 1st, 2025. And I'm reading this because this gives a little bit more detail, because there's an updated version of this. The new law permits any newspapers used by public body as the official newspaper from January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2021. This still met the definition of a newspaper under the law, regardless of physical or digital format of the newspaper's publication from January 1st, 2025 to March 1st, 2025. The publication could be print or electronic format. This temporary fix applies to all public notices, including but not limited to meeting notices, solicitations of bids, and publication of ordinances. The update is S-4136-A-5343, was signed into law on Friday, February 28th. And this is an extension of what the previous law was signed into. And this updates it. A newly signed law extends the expiration of the law up until June 30th, 2025.
Thank you. Do you have a report for the Somerset County Educational Services
No
Commission?
updates.
Okay. Mrs. Amadeo, do you have a report from the Somerset County School Boards Association?
No updates.
Okay, and I'm the liaison for the School Boards Association. Just a reminder that everybody complete their mandatory training. Governance 2 is running a session on March 27th. Governance 3 is running a session on April 1st. And Governance 4 is running a session on April 3rd. There's also an AI conference on June 6th. There is a fee associated with this conference. It's $119, but if anyone was interested, just let me know and we can discuss it with the business administrator. No update for the regionalization committee. Dr. Glazer, do you have an update for the Morris Union Juncture Commission?
Finally, yes. After months of not meeting, we had 2 meetings since the last board meeting. On February 26th, They honored their teachers and support persons of the year, as well as having the honor of having one of the New Jersey Department of Education exemplary educators of the year. So that was fun to watch. We also had their budget presentation, their upcoming budget presentation. It was, you know, such a different look than ours. It was really interesting. Then they had 5 students present on social emotional learning and topics they had been working on, right? It was each of them, you know, one talked about following directions, one about problem solving and anger and feelings. It was wonderful, and it was tied to March 3rd's National SEL Day. It was really nice. I feel like I never get to see kids ever enough. And then the March 13th board meeting also had a presentation that I learned a lot from, that I shared with Ms. Datota, that we'll share notes. They did a presentation on their collaborative behavioral consultative, I hope I got all of that out, model for behaviorists, and how they work together and do the training because there are so few certified people available and such strong needs. They also shared an invitation to all districts for their Tech Day, kind of like Texpo. It's going to be happening on our Professional Learning Day, March 31st. There'll be 18 vendors. You can come and go, stay as long as you want. And our technology committee, through Aaron, was invited to be able to participate.
Thank you. Moving on to community engagement. Is there anyone here from the PTO? Anyone from WEF? Go ahead.
Good evening, Angelo Mealy from Watchung Educational Foundation. First of all, I want to thank you. It was a great presentation on the budget, and thank you for all you do. We have a couple of grants that we've approved, and we're happy to provide grants for 11 guitars that are going to be used in the middle school. And for the 5th grade, a math manipulatives grant that's going to help with fractions and decimals for that teacher, and some new library books for Bayberry. So we're looking forward to that. And one other thing that just had been brought to my attention is the ShopRite. They're opening a new ShopRite in Watchung, and I've connected with their community development person, and they're looking forward to partnering with us and the PTO to provide some community support. So very excited to see what that brings.
Me too. That's great.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone from CPAG? Okay. We'll move on then to comments from the public on agenda items. We welcome input from the public. There are 2 times during the meeting when the public is invited to speak. The first opportunity to comment on agenda items only is now. The second opportunity for public comment is towards the end of the meeting. Total time allotted for public comment is 30 minutes. Before you make your comment, please state your name and municipality of residence. In the event it appears the public comment portion of the meeting may exceed 30 minutes, the presiding officer may limit each statement made by a participant to 3 minutes duration. Our public forums are not structured as a question and answer session, but rather are offered as opportunities to share input with the board. In instances where the board feels a response is needed, the presiding officer or superintendent will address the comment. New Jersey statutes do not permit the board to discuss personnel or hiring in public session. Names of students should not be used. Members of the public should consider their comments in light of legal rights of those affected and identified in their comments, and be aware that they are personally, legally responsible with potential liability for comments that they make to the board. The board shall not be held liable for comments made by members of the public. So what I'll do is I'll have people come up, we'll let everybody speak, and then if we have a response, we'll do it after. And just please make sure that you sign in, so if we're trying to follow up with you after, we know who to contact.
And actually, it's not at the door tonight, it's at the podium.
Okay, it's actually at the podium to sign in.
Oh, is there one there too?
That's the attendance, and that's if you're speaking.
Oh,
So that
podium
we
if
can-
you're speaking.
We can list it properly in the minutes.
Saziano, Watchung. I just have a question about the budget, the banked cap part of it in particular. Whatever. Mrs. or Dr. Or whomever, but so you had mentioned, I don't know if my math isn't mathing, that last year you guys had stated that there was about 1.3 million in banked cap, oh my God, rolls, in available banked, whatever it's called.
Bank cap, yeah.
And that we used about half of it last year. And we're using a quarter of it this year. And then still hopefully we have another quarter of it. Does that mean that we did end up losing some of that back to the state? Because that would only really add up to $1 million, not 1.3. Because it's the 3-year window. Like, so did some of it, because we didn't use it all at once, did some of it actually end up being rolled back to the state?
We'll move through all the comments and then we'll answer
Oh,
at the end.
sorry.
So do you have any, do you have anything else to add? No? Okay. All right. Anyone else? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so that concludes public comments, but now we can, do you have a response or would you like to get back to them?
No, I'm just looking for the exact number from last year, but we did not lose any. So we started out with $1 million and maybe, I don't have the whole, do you have it? I was just looking to see if I could find it quickly. But we used last year 810. So I don't, it wasn't actually probably half. It was, and we left ourselves 507,000, and we're using 250, leaving 257. So it's right around there, but I can't remember the whole 1,000,003. Okay. Yes, we didn't lose it though. We didn't lose it.
Thank you, Mrs. Bishop Johnson. So that will move us into executive session now. Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-11, permits the Board of Education to meet in closed session to discuss certain matters now. Therefore, it be resolved, the Board of Education adjourns to closed session to discuss a matter rendered confidential by federal or state law, student matters, and pending or anticipated litigation or contract negotiation and/or matters of attorney-client privilege. Further resolved, the minutes of this closed session be made public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists and action may be taken. I have someone move that we go into.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, adjourn to executive session. All right, welcome back. Ready to move on to action items.
We have to move back in or no?
No, we did it in.
Did it in executive session.
We have to move back.
Oh,
Um,
back
We have to
in the
move back
session.
I don't,
in public.
do we need to move back into regular session?
We usually do it in there.
Yeah.
We adjourned
To
from
end
exec
that and
it in
come
there.
back, but
session.
you know.
Okay. Mr. Kraft, do you move items under administrative?
I would love to.
Thank you.
I move items A1, approve minutes of previous meeting. 2, affirm the superintendent's HIB reports. 3, accept Bayberry and Valley View school security drill reports.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just wanted to say I watched the meeting, so I'll be able to vote for the first one.
Oh, thank you. Roll call. When you're ready.
Yes, I'm sorry. Okay. Mrs. Amadeo,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Maddox,
Yes.
Mrs. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mrs. Agliaro.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mrs. Santos, can you move items under personnel?
Items, number 1, approve appointment. Number 2, accept resignation. Number 2, approve graduate externship.
Should be 3.
Number 3, approve revised leaves of absence. 4, approve extracurricular positions. 5, approve revised extracurricular positions.
Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just have a question. What was the first one? I don't know what that is. What exactly is that? First one?
Approve appointment?
Yeah, home instructor.
Home instruction.
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
so
know
if
what that
a
is.
child is out for 10 days or more, broken leg, sick, whatever, it's our responsibility to provide 10 hours of home instruction per week while they're out.
Okay, all right,
So, and our teachers are paid to do.
got it, okay.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Amadeo,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mrs. Maddox,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mrs. Santos,
Yes.
Mrs. Agliaro.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Mrs. Harvey, can you move items under operations finance, please?
Sure. I move 1, approve payment of bills. 2, approve transfer of funds 2024-2025. 3, accept financial reports. 4, adoption of the tentative budget for the 25-26 school year. 5, adjustment for healthcare costs, $278,719. 6, adjustment for bank cap, $250,000. 7, authorized travel and related expense reimbursement for the 25-26 school year. 8, authorize the sale of surplus obsolete equipment. 9, approve payment application for Bayberry and Valley View HVAC upgrades. 10, approve change order for Bayberry and Valley View HVAC upgrades. 11, approve consulting services. 12, approve SCESC transportation agreement. 13, approve grants from Watchung Education Foundation, which is greatly appreciated. 14, approve updated special service providers list. 15, approve professional development / school business and related expenses.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
My stroke got a little tight.
Any discussion?
Just want to say that I'm excited to support this tentative budget. I think it's really clear and sensible and putting money towards enhancing education. I'm happy about that.
I second that.
I look forward to eventually getting the basic skills teacher full-time.
Yeah.
Okay. Ready for a roll call whenever you are, Ms. Bishop Johnson?
Mrs. Amadeo,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mrs. Maddox,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Santos,
Yes.
Mrs. Agliaro.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Mrs. Santos, can you move items under curriculum, please?
I'll move approve additional field trip location for the 2024-2025 school year.
Second.
Any discussion? When you're ready, roll call.
Okay. Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Santos,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mrs. Maddox,
Yes.
Mrs. Amadeo,
Yes.
Mrs. Agliaro.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mrs. Amadeo, could you move items under policy, please?
I move items A, first reading, that's policy, well, bylaw 0164, conduct of board meetings, and B, second reading, regulation 7510, use of school facilities.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mrs. Maddox,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mrs. Amadeo,
Yes.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
Mrs. Santos,
Yes.
and Mrs. Agliaro.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, I have a walk-on resolution. So this is a resolution authorizing withdrawal of charges with the School Ethics Commission. Whereas the board, being responsible for protecting and maintaining the integrity of its operations, was made aware of alleged actions and statements made by then board member Anthony Ingrassia and a petition filed by Mr. Ingrassia with the Commissioner of Education that potentially jeopardized the operations of the board. And whereas the School Ethics Act was enacted to, quote, ensure and preserve public confidence in the integrity of elected and appointed school board members and school administrators, end quote, NJAC 6A:28-1.1. And whereas the School Ethics Act further provides that board members must support and protect school personnel in the proper performance of their duties, and that board members are prohibited from taking, quote, private action that may compromise the board, end quote, NJSA 18A:12-24.1. And whereas the board took the alleged conduct and its obligations seriously, which it hoped to have addressed in the appropriate forum to allow the board to focus on the district's business while maintaining the confidence of its employees and the public. And whereas on April 25th, 2024, the board empowered and directed the board president to file an appropriate complaint with the School Ethics Commission with regard to alleged violations of the School Ethics Act and/or Code of Ethics for school board members with the assistance of the board's special counsel. And whereas said action was filed with the School Ethics Commission on July 18th, 2024, and whereas the board has since determined that upon advice of counsel, it is in its best interest to withdraw its support for the pending action, and be it resolved that the board directs and empowers the board president to withdraw this action with the School Ethics Commission.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Amadeo,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Abstain.
Mrs. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Kraft,
Yes.
Mrs. Maddox,
Yes.
Mrs. Santos,
Yes.
Mrs. Agliaro.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
All right, moving on to board business. We did trial the enrollment numbers being on the agenda. Does anyone have any strong feelings about keeping them there or removing them?
I want to keep them on because I'm the one who wrote the email.
Yes, you are.
It's easy to, it's not like an issue, it's
It's
easy.
easy to do. All right. Any other board business? No? We have comments from the public, but there's no public here, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.